I'm over the mountains and I get out and engine out. Oh. Ow. I'm just so happy to be alive. I'm just kind of taking in what just happened. Well, where the hell am I gonna land a freaking plane? I'm gonna die.
On November 24th, 2021, YouTuber and professional action sports athlete Trevor Jacob took off in his newly purchased vintage Taylorcraft from Lompoc Airport just west of Santa Barbara and headed toward the Mammoth Mountain area of the Sierra Nevadas. Trevor was filming his trip with multiple GoPro cameras as he claimed he was going to Mammoth Mountain to paraglide and spread the ashes of a close friend who died in a tragic base jumping accident. Somewhere above the mountains, Trevor, who was wearing a parachuting rig at the time, experienced what appeared to be an engine failure. He immediately grabbed his camera attached to a selfie stick, bailed out of the aircraft, and filmed himself parachuting down to safety. The pilotless Taylorcraft eventually crashed into the mountains below. Once on the ground, Trevor hiked to the crash site to retrieve his multiple cameras that were attached to the wings and to the tail of the aircraft, and then he hiked down the mountainside where he was eventually rescued by farmers. Exactly 1 month later, Trevor uploaded footage from the crash to his YouTube channel in a video titled "I Crashed My Airplane." At the beginning of his video, he stated, "I didn't think I would have the courage to share this footage, but I feel a lot of pilots can learn from my experience. Please wear a parachute." The footage he captured, despite the aircraft being completely smashed, was remarkable. I mean, it's not every day that we get to see such impeccable footage of an actual plane crash. His video was really good, almost too good. Some might say suspiciously good.
How far would you go for YouTube views? Would you crash a plane? Would you commit a felony? Huh? If your answer to that question is no, then you're a and a coward. Take it from my man Trevor, who recently possibly crashed his plane on purpose for the sake of a viral YouTube video.
This should never be referred to as an accident. This was a crash, intentional and meant for attention. And Mr. Jacob is certainly accomplishing that.
I think this incident was staged. It is the most reasonable explanation given the available evidence.
It's all just a little too fishy.
I'm one of the people, if it smells like shit, it probably is shit. I don't buy it. That's me. I don't buy it.
Trevor's video, which has since accumulated over 1 million views, has sparked an outcry from the online aviation community. Countless aviation content creators and even some larger non-aviation content creators have pointed out numerous inconsistencies with his story and footage. Many believe that the accident was staged and that Trevor deliberately crashed his airplane to make a viral video. When I first heard about this controversy, I was immediately intrigued. Some of my longer-term subscribers may already know this, but before producing multi-level marketing content on YouTube, I actually worked in the aviation industry. I grew up around airplanes and studied aviation in college before I worked for a short time as an aircraft dispatcher. I think what really captivates me about this story is that it combines two worlds that I not only have a large interest in, but have actually lived in: the world of aviation and the world of YouTube. Just the thought that someone may have put in the effort to stage an entire plane crash for YouTube content is just crazy to me. And although the topic of today's video is a departure from my normal anti-MLM content, I'm hoping you'll be just as interested in this as you are in the world of MLM fraud. Because if it's revealed that the accident was in fact staged, Trevor is a fraud. Just like the founders of MLM companies, Trevor Jacob is hoping to find fame and fortune by deceiving and manipulating those around him. I also polled my patrons to see if this video topic would be interesting to them, and I received a resounding yes, so I think I'm in good company here. If you guys would like to see more videos like this one, videos that are more about fraud and scams in general, let me know down in the comments, or if you become a patron, I'll likely do more patron polls in the future. In today's video, we're taking a deep dive into Trevor's other content, but before we do that, as briefly as we can, let's go over some of the inconsistencies in Trevor's plane crash story. For brevity's sake, I'm not going to cover every single inconsistency, but if you're interested in hearing more about why people think this plane crash was staged, there are a plethora of videos out there by pilots and aviation enthusiasts alike. Let's start with the obvious, the abundance of GoPro cameras.
All the cameras, like there's 12 cameras on this fucking thing. It's like a goddamn complete 360 video basically of all the camera coverage.
By my count, Trevor had at least 5 GoPros capturing footage. 1 attached to the tail, 2 attached to the left wing, 1 on the dash, and then 1 that was initially filming behind him but was later placed on a selfie stick that he kept in his hand. Many have pointed out that the cameras were all conveniently positioned in such a way to perfectly capture his bailout. I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect shot. What I find even more interesting is if he was in fact flying up to Mammoth Mountain to go paragliding and spread his friend's ashes, why was he so concerned with capturing footage of what is otherwise a pretty routine flight? Wouldn't he be more intent on filming the actual paragliding? It's almost like he was planning on just filming the flight from the very beginning. Also, about the paragliding.
So if he was going up to Mammoth to go paragliding, where was his paragliding rig?
The part of Trevor's video that people have the biggest problem with is the engine failure itself. So an engine failure, yeah, it's a scary thing, but it's not the end of the world. Contrary to what some may think, losing an engine doesn't mean that you'll just fall right out of the sky, even if you are in a single engine aircraft.
When you lose your engine, the first thing you do is fly the airplane, right? You'll see this guy starts jerking controls back and forth, doing stuff that I don't really understand where he gets it from. First thing you do is establish your best glide. So you hold your altitude till you get that glide speed that all pilots know that gets you the most amount of distance for your altitude. You get that speed, you establish it. Now you pick a landing spot. He had several landing spots that he didn't feel like trying out. Get your glide speed, pick your landing spot, make a plan to get there, fly the airplane first, right? He was going through so many gyrations, it looked like nobody was flying the plane. So after you do that, you start maneuvering towards your landing spot, then you try the restart, right? Most pilots know, check your magnetos, carb heat on, mixture rich, or adjust the mixture. Fuel valve, where his fuel valve was kind of dangling off to the side like Trent Palmer was talking about. You try and get it restarted. These little engines, most of the times, if you just compose yourself, you can restart them. If you can't restart them, the next thing you want to do is prepare for the landing. Magnetos off, master off, mixture lean, turn it all up. Before you do that though, real quick, emergency call, right? Squawk emergency on your transponder if you have one. And if you have a radio, which I don't know if he did or not, but you make a distress call. You let them know where you're going down so the search parties can come find you. Plane should have had an emergency locator transmitter on it, which would help people find him. That's the process. Every basic student pilot knows what to do. Establish your glide, pick a field, have your plan to get to that field, and then try and restart. Those are the basic. I didn't see him do any of those things.
There are specific procedures to be followed during an engine failure. Procedures that are designed to give you the best chance of survival and the best chance of preventing a total loss of the airplane. Trevor didn't follow any of those procedures, or if he did, he didn't include that footage in his video. Also, conveniently, we're never shown any footage of inside the cockpit or of the instrument panel when the engine failure supposedly occurred. Many aviation enthusiasts have uploaded videos to YouTube where they've simulated the parameters of Trevor's flight and subsequent engine failure, and every single one of them successfully landed the aircraft. Of course, simulations don't necessarily reflect real-life situations, but it's still a point of interest.
This is our chosen path. It's a nice flat area. There's not many trees. Last minute we're going to go full flaps just to kill off our speed so we don't run into anything. So flaps, full flaps. Control it, control it. Contour to the terrain. We're down. Bumped a little. Right, brake. There we go. Park and brake. Look at that. Would you believe it? The plane's in one piece.
Engine failures can be dealt with, especially when you're in a small plane at a high altitude. Parachuting out of your airplane would be an absolute last resort. Not to mention that parachutes are really only worn when conducting specific types of aerobatics. Pilots don't typically wear parachutes because, frankly, there's no need to. Before bailing from the airplane, despite being in what he described as a near-death situation, Trevor was apparently calm enough to grab his selfie stick GoPro and film himself parachuting down to safety. And once he made it to the ground, instead of hiking to civilization, Trevor, with his GoPro in hand and dragging his parachuting rig behind him, hikes up to the plane crash to retrieve his other GoPros before hiking back down the mountainside. I don't know about you, but if I were truly in a life or death situation like this, making sure I captured good footage of the entire ordeal would be the least of my concerns. I'd be concerned with conserving my energy, finding water, hiking towards where I think people might be, generally trying not to die. Rumor has it that Trevor initially failed to notify the FAA of the crash. He ended up notifying them days later only because he was told to do so by FBO staff. Rumor also has it that after notifying the FAA, he chartered a helicopter to retrieve the mangled aircraft. He then chopped the airplane up and disposed of it before anyone, including the proper authorities, could see it. Things are just not adding up here, and the entire aviation community seems to agree that this plane crash was probably staged. That being said, until the FAA completes its investigation into the situation, we can't say definitively that it was staged. The odds are seemingly against him, though. While I was looking into the story, something that piqued my interest beyond the plane crash itself was what kind of person deliberately crashes an airplane in the hopes of making a viral video? What makes someone commit what is potentially a felony, and what makes them think they'd get away with it? I wanted to know who this Trevor Jacob person was. I spent days going through all of Trevor's content on YouTube, which there's a significant amount of as he's been uploading since 2011. Something I quickly realized is that I'll never know who Trevor is, or rather, I'll never know who Trevor is when the cameras are off. What I believe I have ascertained is who Trevor presents himself as online. Any critique I give of him should be viewed through that lens, as a critique of Trevor's online persona and not a critique of Trevor the person. I don't know Trevor, and I'm not here to label him as a good or bad person. All I know is who Trevor presents himself to be online. On the internet, Trevor plays the role of various characters, so we're going to explore each of them. Hopefully, by the end, we'll see if the Trevor he plays in his plane crash video is consistent with the Trevor he's played for years.
Wow, Trevor.
Yeah, dude.
Rogue swing.
Look up.
Fun, brother. God bless you.
God bless you too, man.
Woo! Get it! You! Dude, that's sick, dude.
Trevor is a professional action sports athlete. He's tried his hand at almost every action sport there is. Snowboarding, skateboarding, motocross, skydiving, MMA, BMX, paragliding, mountain biking, and the list goes on and on. If there's a sport out there that involves some level of risk, especially if it's one where you can do a super sweet backflip off of a super tall ramp, Trevor's done it. He's traveled around with Travis Pastrana's Nitro Circus, which is an action sports show put on for live audiences as well as shot for TV. In Nitro Circus, heavy emphasis is placed on performing extreme and often dangerous stunts. A culture of one-upmanship exists among the performers, and pushing the limits is not just encouraged, but is expected. Trevor has also competed in multiple snowboarding competitions. Most notably, he was the champion of the Valnard World Cup in 2013 and 2014, and he even competed during the 2014 Winter Olympics in the men's snowboard division.
We waited like 16 days. Our event was like on the last day of the whole Olympics. And I went up there. I had a dream the night before that I won, and it was like, it made perfect sense. And like my dream came, you know, like every run was like perfectly happening in my dream. And I literally like woke up and like everything in my dream was coming true. I won the first race, won the second, or I can't remember exactly what happened, maybe like qualified through. And then I think in the semifinal, I overshot this jump, basically got knocked out of the final round, which I would have guaranteed gotten first through sixth. I missed that final round by like 1 inch. I basically made a mistake and overshot this jump and got passed by the finish line by 1 inch. And I truthfully feel, like I said, it almost doesn't count, but I do feel that I would have most likely won if I was in that final round, just to kind of, because of the way things played out. But I didn't. I got 9th.
I think if we were to ask Trevor to describe himself in one sentence, he'd probably say that he's just one gnarly dude living his gnarly life doing gnarly shit.
I don't even know where to start with this, dude. It's so gnarly. It's just kind of gnarly. It's a gnarly story. I just get the gnarliest chills, dude. Oh, dude, I get the gnarliest, like, I just chills the whole time right now.
There's no debate that Trevor is a daredevil, and he makes sure that's reflected in his YouTube videos. He's uploaded countless videos of his various stunts, with each upload being even more outlandish than the last. There's always a new challenge. Skydiving becomes skydiving off of a rope swing attached to a hot air balloon. Snowboarding becomes snowboarding over a moving train. And it seems flying an airplane becomes staging an engine failure so that you can skydive out of that airplane.
We're gonna go scare some people.
So we just, we put a train horn in my truck and we're gonna go scare some people.
Jesus Christ! What the hell?
We got a brand new Mac laptop here. Well, it only looks that way. It actually doesn't work. So what we're gonna do is set it up on a table, attach some fishing string to it.
I'm gonna pull it off as hard as I can, making them think that it was their fault.
And we're gonna prank some people.
It fell down.
What's that?
The computer just fell down.
It fell?
It just fell over.
Nobody was even there. I just fell off the table.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh no. Oh, would you look at that? It's all scratched. It just fell off?
It just fell off.
1 second I was watching porn and maybe that's a sign I should stop watching porn. I mean, it was just on there and now it's gone. Oh no, oh, it won't turn on. Oh no.
In his early days on YouTube, Trevor uploaded a few videos of him and his friends roaming around his town pranking strangers. Now, I debated even talking about this because these videos were filmed when Trevor was much younger, and I'm not here to call out a kid for doing dumb kid shit. I mean, we've all been there. Why I find his prank videos worthy of discussion is because how they contrast with other videos he uploaded around the same time.
Like a snack?
Chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You want chocolate bar? Yeah?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, they're super good, man.
Unbelievable.
Hey, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, man. I'm wondering if you want some food.
Thank you.
Yeah. I got another one for you.
Okay. Thank you.
And snack.
Yeah.
Did
Thank
you want a snack?
Oh, for sure.
I've been giving them out all day long.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you
Right
very
on.
much.
No problem.
Okay. God bless you.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
While seemingly disturbing those in his community with childish pranks, Trevor simultaneously takes on this role of a selfless benefactor, providing for his community whenever he sees someone in need. While neither of these things is problematic on their own, especially not feeding the homeless, that's a good thing that he did that. In my opinion, it suggests Trevor has a desire for public attention. whether that attention given is positive or negative. In a video that's been viewed over 2 million times, Trevor tells the story of how he almost died performing a motocross jump at Travis Pastrana's training complex in Maryland. We'll discuss this more later, but Trevor apparently almost dies on a semi-regular basis. The raw footage of the jump is, well, for lack of better words, pretty gnarly. Trevor flies off his dirt bike and has to kick off a tree to land on the airbag below. If he hadn't kicked off the tree, he could have landed on the ground instead and probably would have broken bones or worse. As Trevor recalls the story, though, we find out that he wasn't really supposed to be performing the jump in the first place.
It was a lot of different, pro motocross guys there that were sessioning this thing, trying to figure it out. Actually, not a lot. There was maybe 3 or 4. Everyone else was not a chance. I'll not do that. So me being me, and obviously when Travis and I get around each other, I kind of get convinced that things make sense that probably don't make sense. And I'm okay, they're sessioning, and then I'm sitting there, and I kind of under my breath, but not really. I was because I obviously don't have as much, freestyle motocross experience as those guys. Of course, I've been riding a long time, but as far as hitting ramps go and different things, I literally have none. I can send it on a dirt bike, but as far as timing goes and different important things that you need to have experience under your belt for to hit a jump like that, zero. I could say 0. And so I'm just sitting there with Travis and Josh, and I'm just kind of watching. And I had previously, earlier that day, actually got a concussion on my BMX bike. I smoked my head and just, was really pretty dazed. But I didn't really say anything about it. I was fine. And I was just sitting there talking with Josh and Travis. And then I think we watched somebody hit it, and I was if it came down to it, I bet I'd hit that thing.
In another video, Trevor tells a story of getting stuck on a chairlift at a ski resort.
I don't even think I was invited, but I showed up anyway, and weaseled my way on the lift, however it ends up working out. And then as soon as we're riding up the chairlift, I see that somebody built this jump, one of the park builders built this quarter pipe literally right next to the chairlift. And as we were riding up the chairlift, I immediately saw, oh, you could either jump off the chairlift into this jump, or what if you jumped off this quarter pipe onto the chairlift?
Now what?
And everything else, there was fun jumps and features, but nothing really caught my attention that was that interesting. So this was all of a sudden my goal. Okay, how can I make something fun like this work? The goal was to jump off this quarter pipe and then land sitting on the chairlift and then just ride up the chairlift. I tried it, I tested it a few times, and it didn't really match up. The chairlift is moving up the hill, and you have to start, maybe 100, 200 feet up the hill in the opposite direction, and you gotta be trying to time that as it's passing this jump. So there's a lot of timing involved in this, and so it took me a couple tries. I tested it a few times, completely missed the chairlift, and then finally this one time, I told this filmer, hey, I'm gonna try it, make sure you're filming. And I went full speed. I'm no matter what, I don't care how I get onto this chairlift, because I had a couple missed tries where it just wasn't working. But that chairlift's pretty long, I didn't feel like hiking it. So this time I'm no matter what, I don't care if I land on it, I don't care if I land on it upside down, I am going to hold on or get on this chairlift no matter what. And so 2 of my friends, I see them coming up the chair, and I'm all right, I locked eyes with them. I'm gonna just jump on and surprise these guys, and I'm gonna land on the chairlift with them. Kind of not thinking, oh, if I jump onto this chair, it might knock them off, or anything like that. Not very thoughtful 16-year-old me.
Trevor continues with his story, saying that he performed the jump and managed to grab onto the bottom of the chair. However, he failed to realize that he'd have to hang from the chair 50 feet above the ground for several minutes before the lift made it to the top where he could safely jump off. Trevor claimed that his arms were so fatigued from hanging from the chair that he nearly let go a couple times, which again could have led to him breaking bones or worse. On his channel, Trevor has also documented the multiple times he's train hopped across the US. During his train hopping adventures, Trevor takes very little with him and often has no specific plans as to where he's going or how he'll get there. On a few occasions, this lack of planning has had pretty disastrous consequences for him.
We waited a whole entire day in the middle of nowhere. Like literally from, it must have been, I don't know what time it was, but the whole entire day we waited in the desert. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are we here? And my only theory was like that the train broke down, because then all of a sudden, you know, romping through the desert was like a couple train car vehicles coming, and they were going up to the front of the train. But you got to keep in mind, this train is like 1 or 2 miles long. Like this train is really, really long. So in that footage, if you go to see that video, I finally ended up losing my mind. I'm out of food, out of water at this point. Like completely unprepared, like with certain situations that I put myself in. I'm just like, screw it, it'll work out, you know? But because it's such a gamble anyway, it's like, you know, I could have gotten off at that point, but I didn't. But now I'm out of food, out of water, and I lose it. I'm like, forget this. I don't even care. We're in the middle of nowhere. I'm walking up to that train, and I'm gonna go talk to these guys. Like, I'm gonna talk to the guys that are running the train.
Last update, we were on a freight train heading out from Pittsburgh. We got caught. We got ripped off the train at gunpoint. We spent 2 days in Stark County Jail in Ohio. It was terrible. Shout out to the homies of Stark County Jail.
Trevor has a knack for putting himself in the most precarious of situations. In his videos, he seems to have this go hard or go home, full send mentality where all of his energy is poured into these over-the-top stunts and little thought is given to the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. Like, this is like the realest moment of my life. And then like to capture that on film, even to just talk about it is kind of unexplainable. Like to the point of like, I'm getting emotional even just thinking about it. I guess I'll just start off by saying that today I was gonna tell this story about the closest that I've ever come to dying.
Around a year ago, Trevor's content took a noticeable shift. Instead of vlogging his various adventures, he started doing these sit-down story time type videos. He has stories about competing in the Olympics, stories about skydiving, and even a story about how he was attacked by a cow.
I got rammed and stomped on by a cow.
If there's one thing that many of these stories have in common, it's that they very often include a near-death experience. In these stories, Trevor claims to have almost died more times than I can count.
I was gonna tell you this story that is probably not the closest I've come to dying, but like the most miracle time that I have no idea how I'm alive. Today I was gonna tell this story about the closest that I've ever come to dying. That was definitely a top moment of near death for me. And then I'm in the airbag laying there and I'm like, you're alive, like you're okay. What? How are you here?
If I'm being honest, his close brushes with death feel off to me. It seems improbable that any one person could almost die this many times, and more probable that he's exaggerating or maybe making things up altogether. The problem is, though, I don't have any direct evidence that Trevor's various encounters with death are fabrications, and in some cases, he does have the footage to back up his stories. For example, in his story about almost dying performing that motocross jump, he does have the footage to prove it. If he hadn't kicked off that tree, I mean, I guess he could have died. He would have at least been seriously injured, that's for sure. Was it an exaggeration that he titled the video Motocross Jump Near Death Pastrana Land? I can't say. I think what gives me the vibe that some of these near-death videos are exaggerations is that some of his other videos where he's not claiming to have almost died, are blatant exaggerations. Let's take a look at one of Trevor's storytime videos titled, I Got Kidnapped at the Airport.
I was gonna tell you the story about when I got kidnapped in an airport.
Wait, what?
I got kidnapped in an airport. I was 16, and hear me out, but I straight up got kidnapped. And this is a hypothetical story because for protection purposes, this may or may not be true. So I was on my way to Norway. I had a layover for this international flight in Atlanta, and I headed from LAX to Atlanta, and I was headed to Amsterdam to Oslo, Norway. And it was quite a long travel plan. But in Atlanta, I had a 6.5 hour layover. So I was like, well, I don't want to just hang out in the airport for 6.5 hours.
I'm going to summarize the rest of Trevor's story because it's quite long and this video doesn't need to be any longer than it's already going to be. During his layover, Trevor decided to take the train to downtown Atlanta. The train ride ended up taking longer than he expected, so he hopped off and boarded a train that was heading back to the airport. While he was on the train, a few seemingly shady individuals started talking to him, and one man in particular followed him off the train when he got to the airport. This man apparently continued following him, kind of stalking him as he went into the check-in area. Trevor then realized that he needed to get through security quickly because his flight was about to board, but the security checkpoint nearest him was closed. He was going to have to walk pretty far and probably miss his flight in order to get to the other security checkpoint. This shady man who was still following him around tells Trevor that he knows a faster way to get to his gate and that he could help him. For some reason, Trevor decides to follow him, even though he's concerned that this guy has ulterior motives. The man takes Trevor through some back halls of the airport and gets him to his gate just in time. Although Trevor never directly acknowledges this while telling his story, it's pretty obvious that his alleged kidnapper was an airport employee that was probably just trying to help out a 16-year-old boy who was obviously flying alone. Let's take a look at another one of Trevor's storytime videos titled, A Helicopter Left Me in the Ocean.
Today, I was going to talk about the time that I got dropped off a mile out at sea by a helicopter on accident. This is completely accidental. I guess I'll start off by just saying that we were doing a helicopter jump and we were skydiving. Had a friend that has a helicopter, and I have a friend that is a really incredible skydive filmer and photographer. Basically, what happened was we're approaching the coast and we were up pretty high at altitude and we're getting ready. We have our headsets on and we're all talking about the plan of action. What are we going to do from here? Okay, we're almost to altitude. Okay, there's our site. That's where we're gonna drop. We're just kind of discussing everything. As soon as I'm about to take the headset set off, the helicopter just starts shaking, like bad. Like just side to side, just and you could hear this gnarly, oh dude, I get the gnarliest, like I'm just chills the whole time right now. It just starts shaking and shaking and shaking and getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm not kidding you, all of a sudden we're at probably 12,000 feet and we just start uncontrollably spinning. The thing kind of leveled itself out. But think about this, as soon as this is all happening, beforehand, we had already spotted our beach and where we're gonna land, and our whole entire landing zone is right there on the coast. So then this happens. Now we're at, dude, I just still have the gnarliest chills. And this all is happening, we're spinning, we're shaking, screaming, like gnarly. But while this is happening, we're just kind of seeing like, okay, well, what's about to happen next? We're about to jump. While this is all going down, we were drifting like a mile out to sea. Far. And so by this point, we're just so stunned and shook that we just want to get out. So the thing settles down, we climb out, and we jump. Ready? You good? Okay, 3, 2, 1, see ya. And then I remember turning around and looking. We are so far from the beach. We're so far. And so I looked and I just pitched right away because you're gonna lose altitude fast if you're tracking, especially with no jumpsuit on or anything. So I just remember looking at him and I pitched and then he pitched and it was dicey, man. I remember I'm pulling on my back risers and putting my feet up like this into the wind, just trying to be as aerodynamic as possible, just trying to get back, hoping we're gonna get close to shore. And I just remember doing this for so long and we just made it back to the beach. Dude, imagine you're in a helicopter spinning out of control and and then you jump out of it and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna drown. I'm not even gonna make it close to back to the beach. So we didn't think we were gonna make it back. I unstrapped my chest harness. I loosened my leg straps because if you have a water landing like that, a lot of people drown. Because they get wrapped up in their parachutes and they can't get away from that. So that's why, you should train water landings because they do happen. And so that I had everything loosened up, like ready to just, basically jump out.
What I don't understand about this story is if the helicopter was apparently shaking so badly that it drifted miles off course, why would Trevor and his friend still decide to jump, knowing they could end up landing in the ocean and possibly drowning? Why didn't the pilot immediately execute an emergency landing in what was obviously an emergency? And why would you title your video, "A Helicopter Left Me in the Ocean," when you ended up landing safely on the beach? He has several other videos like this, where the title of the video doesn't at all match up with the story told. I hate to call it clickbait because there are as many definitions of clickbait as there are people on Earth, but I don't know what else to call it. It's clickbait.
What's up? I'm Trevor Jacob. Today I'm going to teach you how to deal with stress. So stress primarily comes from not taking action on something that probably needs your attention. No matter what it is, if you're having stress in your life, it means that something is not at ease. It means something's wrong, and it means that it's coming to your attention in the form of stress.
In addition to being an action sports athlete, Trevor is also a life coach and has uploaded numerous videos where he gives advice or motivational talks to his audience. He often utilizes his own experiences as examples of how a person can overcome obstacles and achieve success.
Here's the realization. If you're afraid to try, then you'll never succeed.
If you feel like giving up, take a step back and laugh at yourself. Hold your chin high, gain the confidence to keep going, and know whatever you want to accomplish is just out of reach. You are much closer than you think you are. The only limits that you have are the ones that you impose on yourself. You must not be afraid to start because every big project starts small. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. I lost hundreds of snowboard contests before I won the World Cup to become one of 4 members on the Olympic snowboard team. This trick right here, it took me 108 tries before I completed it and rode away. Best feeling ever. Yeah! This one, 56.
I am here to tell you one thing and one thing only, and that is you must never give up.
If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I just love life coaches. There's nothing like paying some self-proclaimed life coach with absolutely no training or qualifications hundreds of dollars for advice you probably could have just Googled yourself. In the description of at least one of his videos, Trevor claims to be a psychologist. However, from all the research I've done, it appears he's only obtained his bachelor's in psychology and hasn't had any education or licensing beyond that. I could be wrong, but I haven't found any information about him being a licensed psychologist, and from the advice he gives in his videos, I highly doubt he is. Majoring in psychology for your undergrad doesn't make you a psychologist. You shouldn't be calling yourself a psychologist if you don't have a license. For example, I studied air traffic control for my undergrad, but I didn't go to the FAA's training academy after college, and I've never worked at an FAA facility, so I'm not going to go around calling myself an air traffic controller because I'm not.
Okay, so we are on an airport. We just got onto an airport, and we're trying to ask pilots for rides. I'm sorry.
You gotta scram, man.
Hey, we're leaving now.
You can't be here.
I apologize. We're out of here. All right, sorry about that.
In a few of his videos, Trevor admits or is shown directly breaking laws or defying authorities. While some of Trevor's rule breaking isn't anything I haven't done myself, some of it's pretty blatantly over the line. For example, in one of his videos, Trevor tells a story of him and his friends jumping moving freight trains on snowboards.
Today I was going to tell you about the story when I jumped a moving freight train on my snowboard.
If you're wondering if Trevor claims he almost died doing this, yes, he does. In his story, Trevor reveals that train maintenance workers actually caught them jumping the trains and told them to leave.
We both jumped this maintenance train, and as soon as we jump the train, the thing just stops. And these two big railroad guys get out, and I remember standing there in the landing, I was like walking back up. Dude, this guy was huge. Has the photographer, I don't want to say any names because saying names got me in trouble last time. Grabs my friend, photographer, by the shirt and is like, "You guys get out of here right now!" Like screaming in his face, like screaming at him. And I just remember his last words. He goes, "If we see any of this online, we're coming after you." We did put this video online. They dragged it out in court and made an example of a 16-year-old kid for 2+ years. They also got the filmers in trouble with, of course, not my knowledge, for contributing illegal acts to a minor, which was just because they were documenting something illegal that happened. My argument in court was that I jumped more than 100 feet, which 50 feet on each side of the train tracks is trespassing. I was like, but I jumped over 100 feet. And then they came back with like, well, there's footage of you standing next to the train. But anyway, the whole thing was just a lot of pain. The guy was right. They were coming after me if I put it online, but you live and learn. And it was a great time, great experience, and something that I wouldn't take back. So.
As we saw previously, Trevor's also been arrested for train hopping and spent a few nights in jail for that. Now, I'm not here to pass judgment on Trevor for his run-ins with the law. Trevor was a minor in some of these situations, so I think some of this can be chalked up to him just being young and not making the best decisions. I think what this does suggest, though, is that Trevor has a tendency to push the boundaries of the law for the sake of the story. He's seemingly willing to break laws when he thinks he can get a good story out of it. While I was writing the script for this video, Trevor, who's been silent ever since he released his plane crash video, finally spoke out about everything. On January 22nd, Trevor was quoted in the New York Times as providing the following statement. "I'll happily say I did not purposely crash my plane for views on YouTube. Given my background, I can see why people would think that. I've been filming everything I do since I was 5 years old. Documenting this trip was no different than any other day for me. People can believe whatever they choose. They have the freedom to do just that." Now, the FAA investigation is still ongoing, and a simple "I didn't do it" isn't enough to absolve his name. There are so many questions left unanswered. There are just way too many inconsistencies. So until we see the results of the investigation, there's no way to know what really happened. Something that Trevor said in his statement stood out to me, though. He said, "Given my background, I can see why people would think that." In other words, he's saying he understands why people think he staged it. I think that's the problem here. It's not just the plane crash video itself that causes people to doubt his authenticity. It's that staging a plane crash would be right in line with a lot of his other content. In fact, the character he plays in his plane crash video seems to be a culmination of the various characters he's played throughout the years. It's almost a reverse boy who cried wolf situation. We've seen Trevor perform risky stunts, pull pranks, exaggerate his stories, and bend the rules for the sake of the story countless times. So why would this be any different? He even tried to use this experience to impart some type of wisdom, again bolstering his image as this sage guru with his whole "this is why I always tell pilots to wear a parachute" spiel. If he did in fact stage the crash, he's bitten off more than he can chew. It's one thing to get in trouble for snowboarding somewhere you weren't supposed to be. It's another thing to get in trouble for deliberately crashing an airplane. For his sake, I hope this is all just a big misunderstanding, but to be honest, I don't see how it could be. Thanks so much for watching. I've been Taylor of the Antibot. A huge thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. You can follow me on Instagram at Taylor_the_Antibot or on Twitter at the Antibot. If you'd like to support this channel financially, my Patreon will be linked down in the description, and I'll see you all on the next one. Say bye!